Under those circumstances, and given that, they want you to step back and say, evaluate her self-defense claim. Evaluate this case and determine whether or not it's manslaughter, or whether or not it's second-degree murder. And make sure that you discount all of the elements of premeditation that the state has already discussed with you. For example, the .25 caliber gun that turned up missing after she took it in a burglary back on May 28th of 2008. And in terms of renting the car, overlook them. Everything else about that, the fact that she wanted a nondescript vehicle at a different place than where she lived, that she then, as in anticipation of that trip, forget the fact that she told Mr. Brewer that she was coming to Mesa and that she needed 2 gas cans. Forget all of that. Forget the fact that in Salinas she bought another gas can and she lied to you about that because that doesn't fit within her scheme, if you will. Then forget the fact that when she gets to Pasadena, she fills up those 3 gas cans. And forget the fact that she told you this story about these skateboarders because that doesn't fit within the story, but just go with the story that she told you. Forget all of that. All of that is just bad coincidences, as well as the fact that her phone somehow magically is not on during the time that she's here in Arizona. You would need to ignore all of that in order to find that there was a premeditation. Additionally, the jury instruction with regard to premeditation is much more clear than that and much more specific than that. It tells you that premeditation, in terms of time, does not necessarily have to be prolonged. So in this particular case, there are 2 types of premeditation. The one where she thought about it since the end of May 2008, and she made the preparations. And the other premeditation when she was at the house. He was killed in 3 different ways. The stab wound to the heart would have killed him. Obviously, the slitting of the throat would have killed him. And the shot to the face would have killed him. All of it did not happen in one instance. It took a period of time. And that, although it was approximately 2 minutes, what this jury instruction tells you is that the time needed for reflection is not necessarily prolonged. And the space and time between the intent or knowledge to kill and the act of killing may be very short. It could be seconds. It could be 4, 5, 6 seconds. And in this case, there was more than that. What she did is she stabbed him first. He wasn't dying quick enough. And she was afraid he was going to live. As he stumbles away, tries to get away, she chases him down. Then she slits his throat and then for good measure shoots him in the face. And that's the only way that you can count for the casing where it is falling on top of the blood. They did talk to you about what is called self-defense. And they said to you, the use of deadly physical force is justified if a reasonable person in the situation would have reasonably believed that immediate deadly physical danger appeared to be present. Actual danger is not necessary to justify the use of deadly physical force. And they said to you, the use of deadly physical force is justified if a reasonable person. And they said, she's a reasonable person. No, that's not what the statute says. The statute says, or the law says, a reasonable person. It doesn't say that the defendant is a reasonable person. The defendant is a liar and a killer. That's not what it says there. It says a reasonable person. A person that is involved in those circumstances. And that's not the defendant. You would have to believe that even after all of the lies, even after the fact that she presented evidence to you about these gas cans, about the fact that she used Priceline when she didn't, the fact that her journals say something when they say something else, the fact that she lied to her doctors, all of that. You have to decide that. Even in light of all of that, you have to believe that force was immediately necessary because she told you so. That's the only way that you would know that it was immediately necessary Because she told you so. Why would deadly physical force be necessary after she stabbed him the first time? It wouldn't be. Why would deadly physical force be necessary after she slashed his throat? Everybody knows that the person, if you slash him that badly, is done. Everybody also knows, for example, if they want to take the shooting first, that if you shoot somebody in the head, that's it. Deadly physical force was immediately necessary. If you have already one of the three killings already done, then you don't need to do the other two. And the reason that I point that out is because that shows that her intent here was to kill, not to defend herself. That's what she was doing. The only injury that she had that day, the only injury that was verified that she had that day, was the injury to her left finger, and she said she got that stabbing him. So what injuries does she have? Or what use does he have? What threats do we have? Well, she says and claims that he said that he was going to fucking kill you, bitch. That's what she says that he said. But again, it's all predicated on believing a liar. Somebody who lied to you about important facts in this case. About things such as the gas can. Why would she have to lie about that? Because if she didn't, then the issue of premeditation is very clear. Well, you're left now to decide whether or not, as to premeditated murder, because they did not discuss the felony murder issue, premeditated murder requires that the defendant, and we can personalize it, Jodi Arias, caused or killed Travis Alexander. Yeah. She put that knife in really good in his chest. She slit his throat, and she shot him in the face. Yeah, she did do that. And did Jodi Arias intend or know that she would kill Travis Victor Alexander? Absolutely. That's why she went for the throat. That's why she just gutted him. And that's why she stuck it in his chest. And that's why she shot him in the face. There was this argument that, well, if she's dragging him back, she would have to aim. No, she wouldn't. He was shot in the right temple as opposed to them telling you it was the left temple. And if she's dragging him this way down the hallway, his right temple would be the one that would be most open to her. And she just took the gun and shot him. He was already dead at the time. And did Jodi Arias act with premeditation? She did. Premeditation means that Jodi Arias intended to kill Travis Victor Alexander. She sure did. She sure did. And after intending or knowing that she wanted to kill him, did she think about it? Well, sure she did. You think that she got the gun in Wairika, the .25 caliber, for any other reason other than to kill him? Do you think that all of these gyrations in preparation for her trip, or these preparations that she took, do you think that those were for any other reason other than to kill him? Do you think that she called Daryl Brewer and said, hey, I want these 2 gas cans because I'm going to Mesa, and then I'm going to lie to people about it? But do you think that she said that? Do you think that she called him for any other reason other than that she wouldn't be found out that she was coming to Mesa? Of course not. And the fact that she bought a 3rd gas can, that was for the purpose of going undetected. The fact that she turned off her cell phone, the fact that she took off the license plates when she arrived at his place, all of that was so she would go undetected when she killed him. And so she reflected. She thought about it or knew, which is what is required. And then it tells you that she didn't have to think of it for a long time. It can be a short period of time. It tells you that it's this reflection regardless of the length of time. In this case is unique in the sense that you have a continuing aspect of premeditation. You have a very long period of time in which he undertakes these preparations, and then you also have a shorter period of time in which he kills them 3 times over. And so there's the premeditation either way, and it tells you that's the difference between first degree and second degree. It also advises you that it is not and I'll just read it, that while reflection is required for first-degree murder, the time needed for reflection is not necessarily prolonged, and the space of time between the knowledge or the intent to kill and the killing of the defendant by the defendant of Travis Alexander may be very short. It does talk to you about premeditation not being the instant effect of a sudden quarrel or heat of passion. And I will point out to you again that Jodi Arias is the only person that indicates that there has been a sudden quarrel or heat of passion. Nothing in the scene itself indicates that. In fact, the scene indicates something else. She actually took some time to delete some photographs from the camera. She actually took time to make sure that she didn't get the bloody footprints onto the carpet. She took time to put the camera in the washing machine, and she took some extra time to kind of wipe up the scene, drag him back, and stick him in the shower. Now, the issue here is that in terms of the instructions, if you find that the defendant is guilty of premeditated murder and or felony murder, which is the state's position, then you do not consider second-degree murder. You do not start with manslaughter and go up. You don't start with second-degree murder and go up. You start with first-degree murder. And once you're done with that first-degree murder calculation, that's the end of the story. Second-degree murder is the same thing as first-degree murder, except there's no premeditation. Clearly, in this case, there is premeditation. And manslaughter actually has another element that's added to it, in addition to what second-degree murder is. There has to be a sudden quarrel or heat of passion. And in order for there to be a sudden quarrel or heat of passion, the defendant has to be believed. But let's talk about manslaughter and the elements. It tells you that if and only if you find the elements of second-degree murder were proven beyond a reasonable doubt, you must then consider whether the homicide was committed upon a sudden quarrel or heat of passion. That's the added element, resulting from adequate provocation by the victim. The provocation here is supplied by Jodi Arias. She's the one that's telling you that he's the one that came after her. But again, it's predicated on you believing her. And it talks about adequate provocation means conduct or circumstances sufficient to deprive a reasonable person of self-control. Well, if it's Ms. Arias that is telling you, is there even any provocation whatsoever? It does say that words alone are not adequate provocation to justify reducing an intentional killing to manslaughter. If a naked guy, as Mr. Alexander was, is in the shower shouting at you, that's not enough to justify manslaughter. Because you can imagine how many situations there are when people get into shouting matches, and that's not appropriate to then shoot them or stab them or slit their throat. And according to her, he said a fifth grader, or words to that effect, could take better pictures than you. That's not sufficient provocation. It is the state's view that nothing in this case indicates that this was anything other than a slaughter, other than a premeditated killing of a guy, Travis Victor Alexander, who just didn't want to have anything to do with her. I am asking you to return a verdict of first-degree murder. Not only of premeditated murder, but also of felony murder. Not because it's an emotional decision that I want you to reach like them by saying that something's nonsensical and that sort of thing, or making an argument just for its own sake, but because in this case, Travis Victor Alexander was slaughtered by this woman.
Objection.
When she slashed his throat, she stabbed him in the heart, and then she shot him in the face, and all of that, thinking about it in advance. Thank you.